We'll discuss tonight the mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur. We're all familiar with fasting on Yom Kippur, but we're not as familiar with the mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur. In fact, the Torah tells us, V'yinisem in Vayikra Chav Gimel Lamed Beis 23:32. V'yinisem es nafsho sechem betisha lachodesh ba'erev you shall afflict your soul on the 9th of the month at night. Me'erev ad erev tishvadu shabbatchem. So the Gemara points out and asks, V'chi v'tisha misanin, is this true? It's the implication of the pasuk is that we fast on the 9th. And we all know Yom Kippur is on the 10th day of the month, not the 9th. Hare Yom Kippur and Basiri b'Tishrehu. And therefore the Gemara concludes that we learn out Kol Ochel V'Shosa, whoever eats and drinks on the 9th of Av, so you get credit for fasting, not only on Yom Kippur, but you get Keilas on it. You get credit for fasting the 9th and 10th. So the Gemara deduces from here, and l'halacha we paskin, there's a mitzvah min Torah. There's a biblical mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur. So let's discuss that point exactly. What is the nature of the mitzvah, or is it a mitzvah, or is it or not? So in fact, on the language, Kol Ochav is one who eats and drinks on the 9th of Tishrei gets credit for fasting. It's not just a philosophical question, but it's halach l'maisa. The Shulchan Aruch writes, Sha'arotze l'sanos tainis chalom b'Shabbos. Like someone has a very bad dream. I don't mean just a little bad dream, a very bad dream. Whatever a very bad dream is, but it was a terrible dream. A person had terrible things happen in the dream. So normally, when you have a terrible dream, it's called a tainis chalom. You fast the next day. So what about if it happens on Friday night, on Shabbos? So Shulchan Aruch says, Sha'arotze l'sanos tainis chalom b'Shabbos o b'yantov rashai. Even though normally we have a chiyuv of oneg on Shabbos, a chiyuv of simcha on Yantiv, nevertheless, if you're permitted to fast the tainis chalom if you want to, even on Shabbos and on Yantiv. Avo be'erev Yom Kippurim b'tishi lo yisane. But on the 9th of Av, on the 9th of Tishrei, one is not permitted to fast the tainis chalom. And the question is, why not? Is the mitzvah of eating on the 9th of Tishrei stricter, more chomer than the mitzvah of eating on Shabbos or Yantav? No, but so why then can't you do a tainis chalom? So that's what some posts can point out, the Lavush and the Sfas Emes, the Kevin Sha'amru Chazal Ocha B'Tishik Ilu L'Sanabo, since the language of Gemara is one who eats on the 9th of Tishrei, it's like you get credit for fasting the 9th and 10th. So we see Achilaso Ola Lo Ketainis. The eating on the 9th of Tishrei counts as fasting on the 9th of Tishrei. V'dai lo im yitav es chalomo v'achilo b'yom hazeh kolcho yafa l'chalom ketainis b'yom achar. Therefore, there's no need to fast, because if you have a tainis chalom on Erev Yom Kippur, by eating you're getting credit for fasting. So therefore, that's how some achronim want to explain why you can't have a tainis chalom on Erev Yom Kippur. But either way, getting back, so it's clearly there's a mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur. The question is, what is the reason for it? What is the reason why we should be eating on Erev Yom Kippur? So Rashi explains, and the Rush, they say maybe Pshuto, the simple explanation is that basically, that since the Torah only gives us one biblical fast day, Yom Kippur, We have other fast days, but biblically speaking, there's only one fast day. And therefore, the Torah is very concerned about one's health. Therefore, one must go ahead and make sure they eat properly on the 9th of Tishrei, Erev Yom Kippur, in order that they do not endanger themselves, and they're able to fast properly on the 10th of Tishrei, which is Yom Kippur. So, according to the Rashi and the Rash, it seems to be a hachana. It's a preparation. It's not a mitzvah per se. It's a preparation for Yom Kippur. But that seems to be the reason. In fact, the Shibulei Leket quotes from others and the Esho Avram that they say, yeah, one should eat on Erev Yom Kippur. It's a preparation for Yom Kippur, but in a totally different way. That since the Torah tells us, "V'nisam es nafsho seichem," you shall afflict your soul. So therefore, they learn. We don't assume this way. You're supposed to make the fast as difficult as possible. So we all know, after a long weekend, come Monday, we're very hungry because we're used to eating much more on the weekend. So the Inoi is, by making you having to eat a lot on Erev Yom Kippur, will make the fast on Yom Kippur much more difficult. That's the Inoi, and therefore it is a. So the way Rashi and the Rosh learn, it's hachana in a positive way. You should have enough strength and health, so therefore you have to eat first. The Shibui Leket does the opposite. It's to cause more Inoi, and therefore by eating more, you make it more difficult. So that's one school of thought. That's not necessarily a mitzvah per se, but it's preparation, it's hachana for the 10th of Tishrei, either to have more food and to make it easier to fast, or make it more difficult to fast. And in fact, they point out the Rabbeinu Yonah, of all places in the Shari Tshuva, Shar Dalet Osches, he points out something totally different. But he says, "Oset achila b'tishi hashlomo Yom Kippurim, Yontav krok b'simcha v'sarak suda, v'kevin sheyom Kippurim afu Yom Tov, v'gam bo yesh bo chiyav simcha, yesh bo chovas achila." So basically, it says as follows: that we know, but we don't. Well, it's a discussion. We know there's a mitzvah simcha on the Shalosh Regolim, and there's a discussion among the Achronim and Rishonim whether there's a mitzvah of simcha on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The Rambam writes, it's not a time when you may simcha yisera, it's not overdo it, and therefore we don't say Hallel on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, even though it fits the mode, it fits the criteria of saying Hallel. So there's a mitzvah of simcha, and therefore we have a Chiyav Suda. But the problem is, since on Yom Kippur it's also to eat, it's prohibited to eat, so you can't have a meal on Yom Kippur. So Rabbeinu Yonah says, the Torah requires us to have a meal on Erev Yom Kippur. So that's the meal, that's how Suda's Yom Kippur is happening on the 9th of Tishrei. And therefore, it's not a preparation, it's an independent mitzvah. There's a mitzvah to have a meal on the 9th of Av, because that's the Simchas Yontav, that is the Chiyav Suda. So it comes out a fundamental machlokas. Rashi, Buli Leket on one hand, Rabbeinu Yonah on the other, is whether the mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur is this for a preparation, like Rashi says, or no, it's an independent mitzvah. And nafkamina, some bring down, is, among other things, is can you take pills to make the fast? Could you take pills on Erev Yom Kippur to make the fast easier for you, or even a pill on Yom Kippur to make the fast easier for you? So according to the Shibulei Leket, no, because the whole point is to make it more difficult. However, we assuming whatever the pills are, that one would be permitted. Again, getting into taking pills, and depending if you could swallow without water, different things like that. So my nafkamina between Rabbeinu Yonah and Rashi and others. So a couple of nafkaminas the post can bring down. Let's say someone knows someone knows that he knows themselves, he's very healthy, strong, and he knows even if he doesn't eat that much on Erev Yom Kippur, he still will be able to fast on the 10th. Let's assume a person knows he can fast 2 days. So if according to Rashi, there's no need to eat because you already are prepared. But according to Rabbeinu Yonah, there'd be a chiyuv to eat. As well, in the other direction, let's say someone isn't going to be fasting on Yom Kippur. He's a chole sheyesh bo sakana. He's a sick person who's in life, who's danger with life threatening, and therefore he has an obligation to eat on Yom Kippur. So someone is going to eat on Yom Kippur because he's a chola, does he have a mitzvah to eat Erev Yom Kippur? So if it's achana, there's no need to prepare, you'll be eating. But if it's a mitzvah of neyatzma, he still has to have a suda Yom Kippur and Erev Yom Kippur. So then he would eat. And another nafkamina would be, what about women? Im nashim mitzuvas pachia. In other words, a woman obligated in this mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur. So it depends. If it's an independent mitzvah, so it's a mitzvah saseh shazman grama, and we know as a general rule, women are exempt from time-bound mitzvah. So the mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur only happens on Erev Yom Kippur. It's time-oriented, and therefore women would be exempt. But as I say, no, if I say it's hachana fasiri, so Rashi's connecting the mitzvah of Erev Yom Kippur of eating on Erev Yom Kippur to the mitzvah of fasting. And since a woman is obligated to fast on Yom Kippur, she'd also be obligated to eat on Erev Yom Kippur. So that would be an issue. And in fact, basically, and other achronim bring down, what about a woman who knows she's going to eat on Yom Kippur? She's a chola, she's allowed to eat. So then what about her? Do you say she has to eat on Erev Yom Kippur? Because if it's a mitzvah say shazman grama, so she's exempt. If you tell me it's connected, it should make a difference because she'll be. Anyways, that's a discussion whether getting into darshina and time and krana. But either way, that's the machloket is whether it's a preparation for Yom Kippur or it's an independent mitzvah, being as a person who's going to be eating on Yom Kippur, or women, and what is someone who knows someone doesn't have to fast. So this interesting pshat from Rav Yonis in Eibshitz. Rav Yonis in Eibshitz in Sefer Chidushei Rav Yonasan in Brachas Chesam and Beis, he raises an interesting point. He says, we know this seems to be counter what we used to do. He says, Shol Afhu al achilas tashi mazu osem erev. Why are we having a mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur? Erev Yom Kippur is man l'tshuva. It's oris alevu. We know it's a time of tshuva. We do the kaparas. We wrap the chicken or the money overhead. We go to the mikvah. We do so many things to ma'orer tshuva, to try to raise our consciousness to become better. So what in the world are we being involved in all this eating? How is eating and drinking tied into tshuva? That's his kasha. So, and he explains that no, eating on the 9th of Tishrei has everything to do with tshuva. Why? Because as we know, as the Gemara tells us in Yuma Pei Vav, the Rambam codifies that what's tshuva gemura? You have an aveira that comes into hand, you already did, and you stay away. Or as the Gemara says, Kol she'agia liyado ma'isa chet she'asa, v'yifrosh mimeno d'lo yaseno. So if you have an opportunity to sin again and you don't, that's a tshuva gemura. So he points out that what happened, the sin of the chet of Adam Harishon In what means did Adam Arishon sin? By eating. He sinned in the Aveira with Adam and Chava when the snake tricked them, and they were involved in the sin of eating. Al Kain min adin sheniskein cheto v'yaseh tikon. Therefore, it makes sense. We want to do the tikun hachet. We want to rectify the chet by eating as well. And therefore, he points out Al Kain matzino b'shulchan aruch, and that's what we find. He says in the Shulchan Aruch writes in Tov Reish Gimel, in general, during Aseret Shemei Tshuva, Shekbidu b'yoter b'asar yom elu b'inyani achila, that some people are makbinas to eat pas akum, to eat pas Yisrael. And why? Because we want to masakin the sin. The sin of Adam Harishon was through food, so we want to rectify it through eating. So they point out that, and in fact they quote a minig of Anshe Yushalayim, Le'achol simukim be'erev Yom Kippurim, that is a minig, some bring down to have raisins, grapes, grape juice, because since the sin of Adam Harishon was with eating from the Eitz Hadas, so therefore they point out, besides the mitzvah of eating a lot, so they point out yesh po mishum tikun cheto shel Adam Harishon, because the Medrash writes shel Adam Harishon chata ba'anovim. You know, the different opinions what the Eitz Hadas looked like. One opinion was grapes, and elo hayu, those were grapes of an aveira. The keneged zeh ochin simukei anavim l'shem mitzvah. So we eat grapes, we eat raisins, we eat them l'shem mitzvah. That's the tikun achet, and that's why normally we find it's oris tshuva we find with fasting, but today we find it by with eating. So, just to summarize, we were discussing the mitzvah or the Indian of eating on Erev Yom Kippur. V'nisam es nafshosechem. The Torah says to afflict your soul on the 9th day. We know on the 9th day, we know the 10th day is Yom Kippur. So the Gemara learns out that there's a mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur, and if we do, we get credit for fasting 9 to 10. That's why the halach of Tainis Chalom doesn't apply on Erev Yom Kippur, because you're already getting credit for fasting. And then we said, what is the nature of the mitzvah? According to Rashi and the Rosh, it's hachana, it's a preparation, but it's a preparation to give you enough strength. The Shibur Likat is a preparation to make it harder. It's inoy. Therefore, you can't take pills to make it easier on your according to Shibur Likat. But according to Rabbi Yonah, it's a mitzvah of Simchas Yantiv, and therefore you can't have the meal on Yom Kippur, so we have the meal on Erev Yom Kippur. And we said, Mainaf Kamina, either way you can have a meal on Erev Yom Kippur, someone who's going to be eating on Yom Kippur, so obviously if it's achana, he doesn't have to prepare, but if it's a mitzvah, independent mitzvah, he'll have to eat, or someone who can fast 2 days in a row, so if it's a mitzvah, he has to eat. If it's a achana, he wouldn't have to eat. And women, whether they're chayiv or not, because if it's an independent mitzvah, it's a time-oriented mitzvah, they're exempt. But if it's achana, if it's connected to Yom Kippur, they're chayiv in Yom Kippur. Just like we say by Kiddush, kol sheyeshtem b'shmi or yeshtem b'zechira, whoever is included in Shmir Shabbos is included in the Kiddush as well. And then we concluded with the Rav Yonas and Eibshitz and Derech Machshava. What's the Indian of tshuva of eating on Erev Yom Kippur? We have mikvah, we have kaparas. What's the Indian of eating? So the sin, we want to rectify the sin of Adam Harishon. Adam Harishon sinned with achila. That's why during Aseret Shemei Tshuva we were more mahadir in what we eat. And as well, since Adam sinned with grapes, so too the meaning Yushalayim is to have raisins, have eggs, have wine, etc., in order to misake. And therefore, and that's really the abode of Yom Kippur. That even though Yom Kippur is a time it's one of the happiest days of the year, as the Gemara tells us in Tainis. But that's a day we serve Hashem, basically davening all day, and Yom Kippur doing tshuva. So on Erev Yom Kippur, we fulfill our mitzvah Simchas Yantiv by eating on Erev Yom Kippur. And that's why, in fact, that Rav Yosef Engel seems to be working with this explanation when he explains the famous question of what do we do about when somebody eats on Yom Kippur Shachol b'Shabbos? What about making Kiddush? So he says you make Shabbos early, you make the Kiddush and eat your meal, and then later on you accept Yom Kippur. Okay, we don't assume that way, but what's he working? He's working with. He seems to be working with the Shita Rabbi Yonah that it's a mitzvah of Simchas Yantiv and there's a chiyuv, and therefore we all know it's a time of Simcha on Erev Yom Kippur, but we also have to realize Lifnei Hashem Tidharu, there's a mitzvah to be in God's presence on Yom Kippur, and sin separates us, and when us doing tshuva, that's the highest level of Simcha. We're in the presence of God, and therefore we begin our Simcha. It's the happiest day on the Jewish calendar, and therefore even though we're fasting, but nevertheless it's a time of Simcha and joy from the fact that we're doing tshuva and getting close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and as we say, L'vnei Hashem Tidharu, that in front of God we become pure, and therefore we reach the ultimate level of Simcha. We know there's a mitzvah in our Torah of fasting on the 10th day of Tishrei, and that's the only biblical fast day we have in the Torah. There are many minor fast days. We just had Som Gedalia, not minor in the sense that they're easier to fast, but they're not biblically mandated, even that's a whole discussion, the Ramban in the Torah to Adam, but originally all the 4 fast days were 25 hours, 24 hours, and had all the different inuyim. But it was too much for Klal Yisrael to take, so later on they moved it down. It's only Tishchani Tisha B'Av, Shehuk B'Lo Torah, the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, Tisha B'Av retained all the inuyim, whether it's different Kabbalah D'Rabbanan, that's a discussion. But originally they were all, but the only biblical fast day is Yom Kippur, and the Torah, which is very concerned about one's health, when the one time they give us a biblical fast day, they give us a biblical mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur. Well, we'll see if it is. It's clearly an Indian to eat on Erev Yom Kippur. So what is the nature of eating on Erev Yom Kippur? In fact, it's the Gemara in Yuma. The pasuk says in the Torah, it says, B'tisha la'erev. It says, V'nisam es nafsho seichem, you shall fast. And if you read the simple reading of the pasuk, it seems to say the ninth day at night. So the Gemara says, "Halo b'tisha misanam, halo b'asarim." So we don't fast on the 9th; we fast on the 10th. From here, the Gemara learns out, "Kol ochel v'shoseh b'tishi." Whoever eats and drinks on the 9th day, it's ke'ilu misana tishi and asiri. You get credit for fasting the 9th and 10th. So I guess if you eat on Erev Yom Kippur, you don't have to fast on Yom Kippur because you already got credit for it. But we see from there the Gemara learns out the tremendous Indian of eating on Erev Yom Kippur. In fact, there's a discussion. What is the nature of this mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur? So the different schools in the Rishonim, in terms of Rashi, the Rush, Rabbeinu Yonah, the Shibulei Haleket, in terms of why is there a mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur? So one school of thought, I think it's Rashi and the Shibulei Haleket and others, the Rush, that it's basically a hachana, it's a preparation for fasting. In other words, since the Torah gives us a mitzvah to fast, and since the Torah is very concerned that we don't endanger our lives when we're fasting, so we have to make sure we eat the appropriate amount of food. So they gave us a mitzvah of hachana that make sure you eat on the 9th, you'll be able to fast, make the fast easy, or be able to fast and function as well on the 10th day. And others, interestingly, Shibulei Haleket say it is a hachana, but in a totally different way. They say, you know what is a mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur? To make the fast harder. That because we all know when the weekend's over, after we've been eating so much, 3 day end, and then the next day we're not eating, we start getting hungry quicker because our body's used to having a lot of food. So the Shibulei Haleket quotes from others that the Indian is inoy. We want to be nisam es nafsho seichem. We don't paskin this way, but it's an interesting pshat that they make so on one hand they're both a hachana, they're both a preparation for Yom Kippur, but in two totally different directions. Nafkamina between the two would be: can I take certain pills on either Erev Yom Kippur or even on Yom Kippur that will make the fast easier for me. If, according to the first school, so of course, why not? Assuming the pills, without the water and all that issue. But according to the Shibboleth, no. That's the mitzvah. Inoy, we want it to be as difficult as possible, and you can't use any artificial means. So that's one school of thought, Hachana. Within the Hachana, you have two schools. What is the preparation? And then you have Rabbi Yonah and others quote that no, that it's not a Hachana, it's an independent mitzvah, the Chiyuv Simcha. That basically, we know on every Yontif we have a meal, but we can't have a Yom Kippur meal, so we do have the Yom Kippur meal. We have the Yom Kippur meal, Erev Yom Kippur. So that's kind of like the quasi Simchas Yontif. There's an independent mitzvah. We have a Chiyuv Suda to eat on Erev Yom Kippur to fulfill our mitzvah Simchas Yontif. So since it's impossible to do it on Yom Kippur, so we do it before Yom Kippur. So my nafkamina, whether I say it's a hachana for, it's a preparation for the 10th day or it's an independent mitzvah. So a couple of nafkaminas. One being is, let's say someone is a chole sheyesh bo sakana. Someone who's sick and life is in danger, and the luck is they're permitted to eat on Yom Kippur. Again, so Pashtus HaShulchan Aruch and the Poskim, that even someone who's a chole sheyesh bo sakana, they can only eat pachas mikshir. We have a general principle in the Gemara that hakal kal tchila. Every time you have to do an avera, well, not really an avera, but something you couldn't do in a normal scenario, you have to try to minimize it. So you always try to minimize the avera. So what's the practical difference? So someone who's a chole sheyesh bo sakana, so the simple pshat is hakal kal tchila, that you have to minimize the avera. To someone who's in a life-threatening situation, if the chola has to eat a certain amount at a certain time, then obviously it does it. But let's say a chola, there's no specific time. You could follow shiurim. So many poskim say that even a chola sheyesh bo sakana has to eat pachas mikshir. Mm-hmm. The briskers have a different shot. The Rav Chaim, that they hold no, a chola sheyesh bo sakana, no shiurim. If you're chol sheish bo sakana, don't play around with shiurim, eat kedarko. The Gemara talks about eating pachos mikshir. So that's talking about a chol she'ein bo sakana. Again, it's all in the definitions, but what they call it's a chol she'ein bo sakana. Right now I'm a chol she'ein bo sakana. But if I don't eat in the next, hour or two, I will become a chol she'yesh bo sakana. So in that scenario, that's when we do shiurim. But someone who's a chole sheyesh bo sakana, that we don't. So the classical poskim say there is shiurim even on chole sheyesh bo sakana. The Rav Chaim, the Briskers say that they make based on a Magid Mishnah in Hilchos Shabbos. You can do kol tzorchei chola on Shabbos, even the stuff that's obviously not necessary. If it's necessary, what's there to talk about? Even things which makes the more comfortable for the chola, but it's not a life and death scenario. Like, obviously you could abuse that also. Well, watching the football game makes the chola. It means more physical things, like fixing the bed. Let's say you have an electric thing, and that type. More. That's what it means. In fact, there's a ma'aseh with the Rav Shechter says over that. I guess he was I guess they were in Europe, I don't know, maybe they were in America by then, in Boston, I don't know. And I guess the doctor came, and I guess, I'm not sure, if someone was sick in the house. Then I guess they made house calls then. And so the Rav Moshe Soloveitchik, the Rav's father, asked the doctor, do you need a light? It was like Shabbos. So the doctor said, it can't hurt. So Rav Moshe told the Rav, turn the light on. So the Rav hesitated for a second. It was Shabbos, like, we don't really need the light. And he started screaming at the Rav, you apikaris, you heretic. So, they like putting it's not the Lameko on Shabbos, it's very machmer and pikuach nefesh. So in general, so it fits in with the whole, so either way, a chola has, whatever the type of chola is, so they have to eat, that's the pachas mikshir. So let's say someone's a chola sheyesh bo sakana, so they're chayiv to eat. How much you're going to eat, that depends on your scenario. So I know I'm going to eat on Yom Kippur. And in fact, the Torah obligates me to eat on Yom Kippur if I'm a cholosh yesh bo sakana. So do I have a mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur? So it depends on the two schools of thought. If it's a hachana for asiri, then hachana, I'm not fasting. What am I preparing for? So I don't. But if I need enough strength, so then I can eat. But if it's an independent mitzvah, if it's a mitzvah simchas yantiv, so whether I'm fasting or not doesn't make a difference. I have an independent mitzvah of eating a nafkamina, or let's say an opposite scenario where someone is very healthy and strong and they don't have to eat so much on Erev Yom Kippur. I could fast, let's say they do, let's say it's a hypothetical where they don't need the special extra food. So if they don't need it, so they won't have to eat it, but if it's a mitzvah, it wouldn't make a difference. Right. A third nafkamina would be nashim, women. A woman obligated or involved in the mitzvah of eating Erev Yom Kippur. Mm-hmm. So again, so on one hand, Pasha should say it's a mitzvah saseh shazman grama. It's a time-oriented mitzvah. It only happens on Erev Yom Kippur, and therefore they should be patur. Or do I say that no, that maybe since if you assume that it's achana le'asiri, and since women are obligated in fasting on Yom Kippur, so just like we have the principle by Kiddush in the Gemara and Brachas Chafam and Beis, Kol sheyeshnu b'shmira yeshnu b'tzachira. Whoever's in it says women are chayev in Kiddush dvar Torah. Mitzvah saseh shazman grama. No, Kol sheyeshnu b'shmira yeshnu b'tzachira. Whoever's included in Shmira Shabbos is also included in Tzachira Shabbos. Like the Gemara has the drasha by Pesach. Why a woman chayev in matzah? It's a mitzvah saseh shazman grama. So Gemara has a juxtaposition in the Psukim, Kol sheyeshnu b'kum ochel, but whoever is included in the Isser of Chametz is yeshnu b'kum ochel matzah. So same thing here. If you assume it's hachana, so if it's connected to Yom Kippur, so if they're obligated in the other things of Yom Kippur, so then you could argue they're also chayiv in that. So that'd be a nafkamina for nashim. And then the Achronim throw in another question. What about a woman who's going to be eating on Yom Kippur? Does she have a mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur? Because if it's a Zman Grama, we said she's patur. What's the reason she'd be chayev? Is because it's achana for. But if you're not going to be fasting on, if the woman's going to be eating, so maybe out the mitzvah say she's patur, then out achana she doesn't need the achana. So then you get into a yudarshin time in the krana. The Beis Selevan, other Achronim discussed that, that issue. That's what it comes down to, this issue. And in fact, this issue of whether the mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur is a din and achilas a sudas yantiv, whether it is the tali is another issue in terms of how long is our slichus Erev Yom Kippur. Most of Klal Yisrael have a long slichus Erev Rosh Hashanah. And Erev Yom Kippur, I think Chaim Berlin's known to have short slichas. That's not for them, and even that's why it's packed Erev Rosh Hashanah, and everyone goes to Chaim Berlin because they want to get out. I don't know personally. That's what people tell me, but so we usually have Erev Yom Kippur as the short one. So I know in Washington Heights the Yekis, it's the opposite. They have a long slichas Erev Yom Kippur. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think it's interesting. I think. Maybe it was Rav Schwab or the one before him used to say, I'm not sure how serious he was about it or not, but the Yakis only wait 3 hours. So I think someone said, I'm not, they lived in the community now or something, I forgot the exact shaila, but they asked for a broyer, maybe someone, could I keep the 3-hour minute? So he said, if you come to us Erev Yom Kippur and say the long slichas, then you could keep 3 hours. So I guess his point was that if you're going to take them in Hagiyeki, you got to take them all. That's all, I guess that was his point. But either way, but I don't think it was focusing, on that. You have to take the kulas with the chumras. That's what I'm saying. Chabad, when I hear Chabad doesn't do slichas asara shemei tshuva. Yeah, but I know because we had people in the yeshiva when I was there, like better Chabad guy who said, the minute Chabad isn't to do slichas. I said, I know. But the minute Chabad is to fast during a Aseret Shemei Tshuva, so I guess you're not going to eat breakfast. he came down. He figured he weighed it too. He'd rather sleep during slichas, put his head down for 20 minutes and get to eat. But same type of thing. So they point out that. So what's the issue? So Rav Soloveitchik pointed out, if you hold that Erev Yom Kippur, it's like Simchas Yontiv, it's like a Yontiv, as a din of a quasi Yontiv. You don't do slichas on a Yontiv, it's a short slichas, you'd make it very brief. But if it's just it's not a mitzvah Simchas Yontiv, it's a mitzvah of Achila on Erev Yom Kippur, but it's not a Yontiv, it's a specific mitzvah of Achila, and therefore, so then you can have a long slichas. And in fact, that's why they bring down the poskim, and the Rav has a shikul and Harei Kedem on it, that let's say someone has a tainis chalom. So we know even on Shabbos and Yontif, if you have a tainis chalom, a bad dream, so you don't have to eat. Because your agmas nefesh, it's really bothering you, don't want to eat. So they point out that, what about a tainis chalom on Erev Yom Kippur? So some poskim say you can't fast Erev Yom Kippur. I guess it's a discussion. So what's the pshat? Wait a minute. It's more chomer than Shabbos and Yontif. So what's the Rav explained, the lamdis is that by Shabbos and Yontiv, it's not an independent chi of achila. There's a chi of Simchas Yontiv which includes achila, and there's a chi of oneg which also, part of oneg is eating. But if I'm in a state of agmas nefesh because I'm broken up by the dream, so by me the oneg is not eating. The simcha, so then there's what? So then, then a tainis chalom you don't eat. But on Erev Yom Kippur is a mitzvah of achila on Erev Yom Kippur. The mitzvah of achila, so then you can't fast. The din itself is so that depends also on the chakira in terms of whether one could fast on Erev Yom Kippur. If it's whether how you view it's a din of achila, achila or not. So that's why, and that has to do with the long, the long and short slichas as well. So just I'll just get a quick thing on kaparas and before I take her back. So, there's an ancient minhag of doing kaparas. Even the old minhag maybe some still do it today with the live chickens, and it goes back I think to the minhag shuvas minhag gaonim, and it seems to be a universal custom. However, it's not so pashut. The Ramban and the Rashba are very against the minhag. They say darkei amori, avodah zarah. You're taking the sins and putting it on the chicken. Like, what's that all about? So the Machaber quotes the Rashba, doesn't go as far as calling it darkei amori, but he says not to do it. The Ramah writes the minhag in Ashkenaz is to do it. What about darkei amori? How come we're not concerned? So the Marival writes that no, it's not. It's not darkei amori. It's not that the pshat is that we're putting the sins onto the chicken. It's basically that's kind of like the Ramban by Karbanas. Basically, I really deserve to be the one shechted. I gotta be the one, but God doesn't want us that. He wants our ratzon. So to speak, that's representing our guf, but God, we're giving our ratzon. It's kind of to elicit thoughts of tshuva, and since it's to elicit tshuva, therefore it's okay. And in fact, that's a general machokas Ramah and the Gra, how far the issue of chukas hagayim goes, and so according to the Gra is much more machmor by chukas hagayim. Anything to do with avodah zarah, even if it's a practical benefit, he still says you can't do it. Are you here? Whether he's not talking about kaparas. If you took to the logical extension, then maybe he would say not to, but he's not discussing that. And the Ramah says if there's practical gain out of it, i.e. kaparas, and then it's not a problem with darkei amori. Other Mepharshim say it's not darkei amori at all. Only those listed in the Tosefta are dar. You can't make up your own darkei amori. It might sound mystical, but it's not really darkei amori. So there's a philosophical issue with doing it with the chicken in terms of darkei amori. We get minhag Ashkenaz to do it, but I'm just saying it's not as pashut as it sounds. And then others bring down pragmatic problems with it. Avaja Yosef, the problem is there's so many people coming with the chickens. They don't shecht it properly, they're going to end up eating non-kosher. So he says that's the problem. And then Rav Zalman Margolis said it's a problem of also Sabar Chaim. There are people long lines holding the chickens, live chickens. So therefore what Avaja Yosef suggests is you should start doing it now. Before Rosh Hashanah, during Asari, don't wait till Erev Yom Kippur. And therefore there'll be plenty of time to slaughter the chicken properly and it's not Sar Bali Chayim. Interesting enough, and the old minig, Rashi quotes in Shabbos on Pei Aleph from a minig of the Gaonim, that about 20 to 25 days before Rosh Hashanah, they used to plant legumes, have different plants. And in Erev Rosh Hashanah, not Erev Yom Kippur, they used to do this thing around the head and say, Zeh Khalifa Si, whatever it is. And so it's interesting that it was with legumes, plants, not animals. And it was Erev Rosh Hashanah, not Erev Yom Kippur. So it could be the fact it was a plant, that took away the problem of Darkei Amori, and that takes obviously the problem of Sar Bali Chayim, even though plant life is a certain kind of life, but it's on a lower level, so I guess we don't assume there's and that could be also why the minhag developed as well. We do it, most people do it over money now. You still have some hardcore people who go for the chickens, but most people I know use the money, and therefore also that's also probably to avoid the whole, the practical getting chickens, but also maybe it's based on the fact the minhag developed, stay away from the Darkei Amori and that. So there's an interesting halacha brought down. So we know a man should bring like a rooster, assuming he's using the chicken, and a woman like a female chicken. What about a pregnant woman? So the Rama writes, a pregnant woman, if it's a female, assuming, I guess, they took a Sana girl, whatever they knew, because I don't know how they knew then, but if it was a female, so then you only have to bring one. But if it's a male, you have to bring another one. You have to bring two. And the Arizal writes, you got to bring two no matter what, even if it's a female. What's the machloket, the Nekudas HaMachloket between the Rama and the Arizal? So the Vilna Gaon writes, the issue is based on the Sugya Yavamas, whether Uber Yerech Imo or not. Whether the Uber is considered part of, so the Rama writes, Uber Yerech Imo. And therefore, if it's a female limb, so it's all the same, therefore you only need one. If it's a male, then you need another one. And the Arizal apparently holds Uber Lav Yerech Imo, and therefore you have to bring a separate for each one. There's many issues with abortion, it deals with other issues, but in terms of that. So that's, those are some of the issues with Kapora. So to summarize, so we discussed the Indian of eating on Erev Yom Kippur. According to many, it's a mitzvah min HaTorah, and whether it's a hachana, whether in a positive sense to make it easier to fast or make it harder to fast, or it's an independent mitzvah. Could you take pills to make it easier on you, or let's say someone who's a cholish ish, but someone who's going to eat, does he have a mitzvah on Erev Yom Kippur? Someone who's strong enough who doesn't have to eat, does he still have to eat? A woman, does she have to eat? A woman, a bigger child, a woman who's a cholish ish or a sakana, does she have a mitzvah to eat Erev Yom Kippur? The issue of slichas Erev Yom Kippur has to do with the issue of yantiv anah, and then the issue of a tainis chalom on Erev Yom Kippur, whether, according to those who say you fast, is because it's a special mitzvah of achilas Erev Yom Kippur. That's why many of the Gedolim used to walk around with lollipops or gum and sucking candies all day, because every second, they got another mitzvah they held. It's a continuous mitzvah all day to be eating. And then we discussed the minhag of kaparas, which, we think is pasha, but it wasn't, and it had many opposition. Darkei Amori, the Ramban, the Rashbam, the Mechaber seems to, I'm not sure if the Sfardim don't do it. To me, usually, it's more mystical. The Sfardim are usually into that stuff, but maybe they just do it, with the money, because I didn't know that they didn't do it, but, and the Ramah says to do it, either because we're doing it like Tashli, we're doing things to elicit things of tshuva, it's not Darkei Amori, the practical concerns we take care of Asar Bali Chayim and the Shechita by doing it, spreading the wealth, doing it throughout Asar Shemei Tshuva, and then that's why we do money probably as well, and then the issue of a pregnant woman to the Machokas, the Arizal Ramah, whether she has to bring two chickens or one, if it's a female. So since we're in Erev Yom Kippur right now, we'll begin with Erev Yom Kippur, and then hopefully we'll get to some Yom Kippur Shachol b'Shabbos Shilas as well. But so the Gemara tells us in Yuma, B'Nisam es nafsho sechem, B'Tishol Erev. So the Gemara asks the obvious question: like Tisha Misanin and Basara Misanin. Don't you fast on the 10th? The Gemara has the famous drasha called Ocha V'Shoseh B'Tishi. Whoever eats on Erev Yom Kippur Ki'ilu Misana Tishi V'Asiri. It's like you get credit for fasting the 9th and 10th. So I guess we don't have to fast on Yom Kippur. So either way, that's the drasha. So there's an Indian of eating on Erev Yom Kippur. What is the nature of this mitzvah, or is it a mitzvah deraisa, mitzvah d'Rabbanan? Many assume it's a deraisa even. So we know we have one biblical fast day a year, and therefore the Torah is very concerned. Ishmartem es nafshosechem. Torah is very concerned with our health, and therefore they want to make sure that you have enough food to eat on Erev Yom Kippur so you'll be able to fast. So that's what many, the Rashi quote, that the purpose of the eating on Erev Yom Kippur is a hachana lasiri. It's a preparation for the 10th day, and to give you enough strength. The Shibui Haleket is what Lazer was discussing. He also says it's hachana, but in a totally opposite direction. He says, it says, V'nisam es nafshosechem. So he says, you know why? We all know after the weekend we start getting hungry Monday morning, whenever the weekend ends, because we're used to eating so much, and when we don't eat as much, so he said the mitzvah is to eat a lot on every Yom Kippur to make the fast harder, to feel the inoi, on Yom Kippur. My nafkamina, so the post can bring down this nafkamina. Can you do things on Erev Yom Kippur, or could you take pills that will allow you to fast easier? So again, whether it's referring to headaches and that type, well, that's considered tangential in terms of that. So according to this Shibu Halekha, one could discuss. I'm not saying it would be, but then we can entertain the question whether you should be taking these pills. But if you assume, and if you assume, according to the first pair, it's going to help you if it's hachana. So what greater hachana? That's why we're eating. So why not take pills as well? Or do we say, Rabbi Yonah quotes, and other Rishonim say that no, it's not a hachana. The reason why we're eating on Erev Yom Kippur isn't as a preparation. It might coincidentally, if you eat tomorrow, it might help you fast, but that's not the reason. We know that Yom Kippur is one of the Yom Tovim, one of the Moadim, and as the Rambam points out, and the Gemara, that even that's the whole discussion. The Rishonim, whether there's a chi of simcha on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So the Lashon in the Gemara, when it talks about why not say Hallel why not on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? Because it fits all the criteria. So therefore, it's Zikri Moed, Iktish Basias Malach has its own korban. The Gemara says you're right, but is it appropriate? We're being judged on Chayim Amavis, life and death, and when it was oblivious, and when they're singing Shira, so there's a mitzvah of simcha, but don't overdo it, so to speak. So we see, some Rishonim and point out, we see from here, that's what the Rambam writes, Lo Yemei Simcha Yisera. They're not overly joyous, but there's still a din of simcha. And therefore, so we know part of the mitzvah, so if you assume there's a mitzvah of simcha on Yom Kippur, so then, usually, we know part of the mitzvah of simcha, you have Sudas Yantif. Usually simcha, but obviously on Yom Kippur, since it says, V'nisam and nafshosechem, you can. So that's what some Rishonim want to suggest. You know what the Indian of eating on Erev Yom Kippur is? That's also did the Simchas Yantiv. The mitzvah of having the Sudas Yom Kippur is on Erev Yom Kippur. So therefore, according to this Shita, it's a totally independent mitzvah. Eating on Erev Yom Kippur is an independent mitzvah. So my nafkamina, whether I say it's hachana or in either direction or an independent mitzvah. So the nafkamina is, let's say, cholesh sheyesh bo sakana. Let's say someone who is going to be eating on Yom Kippur. Again, we've gone in the past to discussion what exactly, who are the shiurim for. How much can a cholesh sheyesh bo sakana eat? Can he just eat kedarko regularly? Or no, machino so kal tchila, you have this, the classical postim assume that this shiurim, even for a cholesh sheyesh bo sakana. And Rav Chaim, the Soloveitchik family, based on a Magid Mishnah and Hilchos Shabbos, that the Magid Mishnah writes you could do kol any of the needs of even the non-life-threatening. Again, so how far you take that? He wants to watch the Yankee game, so that's already, I don't know. Maybe it was the Met game, but a Yankee game, no. But it means more.
That's Misha Ochsa Bulmus.
Yeah,
to watch the Yankees. I never understood that. Now I understand.
Yeah. And that's what they point out. So it means more. Let's say on the bed in the hospital, no one's around, and you have to use electric. So that's what the Maggid Mishnah the needs. Even though he's not going to die if you don't fix his bed, but the comforts of the chola, even those non-essential. The Maggid Mishnah writes Adocha Shabbos. In fact, it's the famous Maisa with the Rav and his father. Different versions of it. Basically, whoever someone was sick. I'm not sure exactly what the status was, but either way, so the doctor. They used to make house calls then. So Rav Moshe Soloveitchik asked the doctor, "Do you need the light?" So he said, it can't hurt. So he said, okay, Rob, okay, go turn on the light. So he hesitated for a minute. He said, you apikoros, you heretic. Of course you turn on. So he's working with the Maggid Mishnah, which is the normative halacha. So that's the issue. Again, and the tricky part is what is it? In other words, what does it mean exactly? It's a cholesh she'ein bo sakana now, but later on. So some will say, well, you basically are a cholesh she'ein. That how they put it is unclear, because you could argue either way. Either you could say the two types of cholesh she'ein bo sakana. There's one that is in danger right now, that you eat kedarko, but a cholesh she'ein bo sakana, it's still in you, but let's say it's not going to happen to 5 hours from now. So they make a distinction, however you want to define the terms, in terms of whether that person's chola, because then it's very nogayat, someone with diabetes. In other words, how do you classify these people? Make the big difference. But that's how Rav Soloveitchik and those go with that. Even on chola sheyesh bo sakana the shiurim, no shiurim, you eat whatever you need, and a chola she'ein bo sakana who. If you don't do the eating, you're going to become one. So then that you have to eat the shiurim. Another poskim say no, shiurim forever. So whichever shita you're taking, is this person's eating on Yom Kippur. So
is that the punchline of the story of the
big machmir in this?
Yeah, about right. So in terms of don't think I'm a makel and no, but I was just bringing it. I was just focusing on the
story.
Yeah. Because they always say the brisket is so machmir. So he says, I'm not being makel on Hilchos Shabbos. I'm a big machmir on Pikuach Nefesh, and all those. It wasn't necessarily that story, but that's what wasn't necessarily in that situation. But that's what they say all the time.
Right.
So basically, the case is the person's eating. So someone's a cholesh sheyesh bo sakana on Yom Kippur, so they're eating. So do they have a mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur? So if you go with the first school of thought in either direction, or it depends on which direction, we'll go, if it's achana, you want to eat in order to get the strength to fast. So if I'm not fasting, so what do I have to eat? You'll eat whatever you're eating, but not eating the special mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur. But if you assume it's an independent obligation, that there's a chiyuv, it's a sudas mitzvah. So whether I'm eating on Yom Kippur or not, it's irrelevant. I have a separate independent mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur. And that's also in the reverse case. Let's say someone who's very healthy, strong, and they go, it's common occurrence with them, they could go, it's not a big deal, they don't have to eat more than they usually eat. Do they have a special union to eat more than usual in order, with shame, in order to make... So again, if it's a hachana, so the more hachana. My hachana is by eating less, because I don't like eating too much and make it harder to fast. Or if it's independent mitzvah, it would make a difference. Or they bring out in the nafkamina nashim, a woman obligated in this mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur. So pashtis, it's a mitzvah sasesha as man grama, because you only can fulfill the mitzvah on Erev Yom Kippur, and therefore women should be exempt. On the other hand,
by the same token, you should be exempt from fasting Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur is a sasesha as man grama. So that doesn't apply.
No, but that's no.
Yeah, but it's Kol Mishid the
that's-
Inui. Right?
That's
Whoever's in the
That's that's the other side. You say no. If you assume eating every Yom Kippur is hachana for the chi, and since a woman is chayiv in the inui, hence that's the chakira. Which way? If you say it's hachana, so then a woman, say maybe a woman has a bigger mitzvah because usually women, let's say, are weaker, they need to eat more, so therefore they definitely are chayiv even more. The shaila the Beis Halevi, the others to bring up is what about a woman who's going to eat on Yom Kippur? Does she have a mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur? So on one hand, if you say if it's an independent mitzvah, so mitzvah sasei has mangrama. If it's hachana, what hachana? She doesn't have to need. The question the darshin and time in the krah, but that's how the Achronim discussed. A sick man, a sick woman, etc. But that's the issue in terms of whether it's an independent mitzvah, a chi of simcha on that day to eat, that you eat, or it's just a hachana. There's nothing special about Erev Yom Kippur. It's just a hachana with the she. In fact, that's what they point out. That's why Laser brought out the popcorn and the cookies tonight, because we know there's a mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur. What about tonight, the night before? So that's a discussion among the Rishonim whether the mitzvah to be marbe b'achila begins tonight, or does it begin tomorrow? People claim I'm too makos. I'll give you a chumrah. You have to eat a lot of food tonight as part of the mitzvah. But either way, I think that was the famous Beis Halevi in a different context. The Maskia was saying to the Beis Halevi, all your briskers are always machmir. So we gave him a list of things. So one of the things he said, okay, you could learn Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzos. I'll give you a kula. But so either way, so they point out that so that's the shiloh. So in fact, it's nogea the yekis. There's a big shiloh. Is there a big slichos tonight / tomorrow morning? Or is there a small slichos? So many shuls do a small slichos, like 5-10 minutes. But in Washington Heights and Breuer's, they have a long slichos. In fact, much of it was a Breuer, a Schwab. Someone moved into the community, and he wanted to know, could he keep 3 hours? Because the minute, assuming they even keep 3 hours anymore, but the minute from the Germans, they kept 3 hours. So apparently the story goes, he says, if you do a long slichos Erev Yom Kippur, then I'll let you keep 3 hours. But if you're going to take our minhagim, take them all. Why
the long slichos?
I'll get to that in a second.
And get more sins.
Yeah, and then because it was the same thing when I was in the yeshiva. I had one of the students during Aseret Shemei Tshuva. I guess he was a shtickle Chabad or who knows what. So he said, I don't do slichas. We don't do slichas during Aseret Shemei Tshuva. I said, that's great. So I guess you're not going to be eating breakfast or lunch today either, because they fast during Aseret Shemei Tshuva, but they don't. Taste. Yeah, well, I guess it depends too. But I'm just saying. So either way, so. People like having selected memories, but either way, there goes. So what's the issue? What's in the kuda? So the question is it a yantif? So in other words, if it's just a din of a hachana for the next day, okay, so I'll have to eat, but it's not a yantif. So therefore, what? So why not have a long slichas? It's a Aseret Shemei Tshuva. You want to get it all in. Be marbe b'slichas. But if you hold it to yantif, that we're saying is that's why we're having the Suda. So it's a yantif. We don't have we minimize any slichas we have. It's not a real yantif. That's why the meaning of having a small slichas is because we assume it's a yantiv, and therefore it's not like Rabbi Yonah, but it's actual. It's a chiyuv. In fact, it's interesting discussion. The Rama I think brings down about someone has a tainis chalom on Erev Yom Kippur. So the halacha is on Shabbos and Yantiv you're allowed to eat. You're allowed to fast on Shabbos and Yantiv. Yet they bring down some shitas that it's usher to fast the tainis chalom on Erev Yom Kippur. So is Erev Yom Kippur more chashuv, more kadosh than Shabbos and Yantiv? So that's what Rav Soloveitchik explained in the Hari Kedem. He points out that no, the difference is when it comes to Shabbos and Yantiv, there's not a chi of achila. There's a chi of simcha, a chi of oneg, and within the chi of simcha, within the Chiyuv Oneg, one of those things you do is, one of the ways to get the Oneg Shabbos is by eating and the Simcha. But in the case, by eating, you're an Agmas Nefesh, now you don't want to eat, okay, so the Oneg is not eating, or the Simcha is not eating. Masha'in came, when it comes to Erev Yom Kippur, there's no, working with the school of thought. It's not a yontif, but it's just there's a chiyuv to eat. It's a mice. There's a chiyuv to eat on Erev Yom Kippur. That's why many of the gedolim were known, like Selevan to others, that they used to keep a sucking candy, gum, or lollipops in their mouth all day. Every second they get another mitzvah. So it would be dependent on that issue. So according to that shita, you can't have a tainus home because that's a chiyuv achila, and therefore you can't have a tainus chalom on the day. But all these issues seem to revolve around this chakira in terms of what is the nature of the mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur. Is it a din of hachana, whether hachana to make it easier or hachana to make it harder, whichever hachana you're taking. And then, within that you have the nafkamina about taking these medications, and then you have a independent chakira. Is it an independent mitzvah versus it's an independent mitzvah and different nafkamina? It's a cholish yesh bo sakana, someone who's very strong doesn't have to eat, nashim, etc. And this issue about the long slichas, on Erev Yom Kippur now would be totally of Tanayat, but also that would be the issue. Does the mitzvah begin tonight? If it's a chiyuv, if it's just a chiyuv achilas, then one could argue that the next day, the night before doesn't really help you so much, or not as much, not as significant to your fast. But if it's a yontif, then the yontif starts now, and that's why to continue snacking, keep a popcorn in your mouth during this year is to keep going. So that's some of the issues in Erev Yom Kippur. Just to move to Yom Kippur and specifically to discuss. Well, it's both, but to try to get to a Yom Kippur Shachal B'Shabbos Shaila. So in terms of, we mentioned that in fact that was the whole historical issue. I think it was that Rabbi Yisrael Salanter got up once after Kol Nidre. There was a cholera broke out, and there was and he got up, and it was after Kol Nidre. The story goes, he made kiddush, and he went ahead and he told everyone to eat. So if there was Salanter drinking wine, then we all can. So that's a major historical controversy. Number one, it's twofold. It's controversial that he actually told the people to eat. But this actually touches on that shtickle that I was discussing from the Rabbi of Chaim. That obviously, even though I could machalik between the two, but what the post can bring down is he was saying, even though right now these people are cholish ein bo sakana, but he wanted to stop an epidemic, so therefore he told them, even though right now they weren't. So many posts can say he was wrong. What's he doing? It was a wrong psak of Yisrael Salanter. That's one issue, whether you should have allowed that or not. And then you can't as cautious on a ma'isa, so I guess they are. And secondly,
what was he wrong about?
No, he was
making kiddush. It was a Shabbos, or
that I'm going to get to. I'll get to the second point. No, they felt that to tell everyone to eat. Everyone wasn't in takana. In the fact that they are again telling people who are right now not even a chola, maybe I forget about chola. Let's say, I guess the danger is people. I'm not sure. I guess if you eat, I guess you're stronger. You're less conducive catching. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but assuming eating would help, would keep you, would have a better chance. So again, he felt, since even though a cholish ein bo sakana, or not even a bari now, but if they don't eat, they might be more susceptible. Therefore, everyone should eat. And others felt he was wrong, like you can't. At best, maybe shiurim or not even eating at all. But that was one that was one point. And the question is, when did this happen? Was this a Yom Kippur Shachal B'Shabbos? What do you mean he was making kiddush? Like, you mean so on your regular Yom Kippur you make kiddush when you eat, like a cholish eish bo sakana, when they eat they make kiddush, or was it Shabbos? That's a historical debate. But in terms of a pashtus, I mean, as we'll see now, it probably was a Yom Kippur Shachal B'Shabbos, because pashtus a Yom Kippur Shachal B'Chom. So the Shulchan Aruch brings down the inyan of saying Yala v'Yavo on, during Birkas Hamazon, I guess it's interesting, what Kiddush you make. You mentioned Yom Kippur, so we'll get into that or not. Rabbi Kiva Eger, the Magen Avram. But they bring down to say, I guess if it's Shabbos, you say Ritzei also. However, the Shulchan Aruch doesn't discuss Kiddush. The first one to bring it up is the Magen Avram. The Magen Avram quotes from this Rav Katz or something. I don't know who it is, but he quotes from the Magen Avram, quotes this Rav Katz, and he says that no Kiddush on Yom Kippur, and I think even on Yom Kippur Shachol b'Shabbos, because he says like this. He says because really Yom Kippur is a day which doesn't require a Kiddush. We'll see if we could discuss that assumption. But that's what he says. Yom Kippur is not a day that's chayiv in Kiddush. So really, it's also for you to make Kiddush. It's also for you to eat. What's your heter for eating? It's pikuach nefesh. So what's the pikuach nefesh? It's kachol shavulei. So that means it's like Tuesday for you today. If it's Tuesday, while you're making Kiddush. So he says one should not, and for that matter, he's also against even saying Yalav v'Yavo and Ritzeh.
But he wouldn't allow them to do malacha. He wouldn't allow to do any of the other renuyim.
Right, no, right, exactly how. No, I know about kachol, but he's saying exactly. So how? That's why we're not going to accept it. But I'm saying, right, obviously he wouldn't say that far. I mean, yeah, well he would do it.
It's more the gabi achid.
Yeah, or anything you need. Like obviously, if it's Tuesday,
right.
So that's what he's saying. So since the only heter to eat, really you can't eat on Yom Kippur.
Right.
So therefore he's saying is, so Kish saying don't mention Yalav against the Shulchan Aruch. We don't pass like him anyway. But he said according to him, you shouldn't even mention Yalav. If you take it to the logical extreme, he says that you're not doing it because of Yom Kippur or Shabbos. So either way, the Shulchan Aruch says to make it, and in fact the Magen to not to make Kiddush. The Shulchan Aruch says to say we'll get to Kiddush.
He doesn't talk about it.
No, we didn't get. Shulchan Aruch doesn't say Kiddush. We'll get Shulchan Aruch says to say Ritzei and Yalav v'Yavo.
No Kiddush.
The Magen Avram is the first one to mention. We'll get to that in a second. And the Magen Avram raises the question of Lechem Mishnah. Interesting, Lechem Mishnah. I guess the kind you fit into a shot glass, like you get it today. What kind of Lechem Mishnah do you mean? But we assume no Lechem Mishnah either. But that's a discussion. Well, if it's Yom Kippur, if it's Shabbos, then maybe Lechem Mishnah. So the issue is what about Kiddush on when it's Yom Kippur Shachol b'Shabbos? So the Magen Avram quotes this Rav Katz, and he says no chi of Kiddush, even a Yom Kippur Shachol b'Shabbos, you're not going to make a Kiddush. And Rabbi Kiva Eger disagrees. Rabbi Kiva Eger, in fact, it goes back to a more fundamental question: how does one fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush in general? So we have to assume perhaps you can fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush without any wine or bread. So in fact, that's one of the shilas they ask is according to Reish Lakish, that says Chatzi Shir is mutter min Torah. So so he says so according to him, why don't you make Kiddush? You drink the smallest shir. You won't violate Yom Kippur. You eat your kazayas of bread, and therefore you have a chiyuv, you have a mitzvah deraisa. You're not violating. So that's the kasha they ask according to. If you make those assumptions, why not make Kiddush and eat? According to Allah L'maita, we pass like Rabbi Yochanan. It's a machlokes. Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, whether the Chatzi Shir is also min Torah or not. We pass it's also, but according to Reish Lakish, why not make Kiddush on Yom Kippur Shachol b'Shabbos? Eat, drink. The shir is less, so you're not going to violate Yom Kippur min Torah. You have a chiyuv Kiddush min Torah. That's the kasha. We'll touch on that shortly. But getting back, how do you fulfill Kiddush in general? So the assumption is, obviously in these questions, that you have to have a cup of wine, that's what Rabbi Kiva Eger discusses, assuming the sheet of Kiddush b'makam sud is the raisa, then they're making those assumptions. But those are far from assumptions of being true halacha. In fact, even Rabbi Kiva Eger himself, suggests good Shabbos would be enough potentially. But it goes back to the Magen Avram, based on the Rambam. It's three sheets in the Rishonim. How does one fulfill the mitzvah in Torah of Kiddush? The Rambam says bidvarim, with words alone, and then Tosas and Ari Psachim has it's a deraisa just to make it over the cup. You don't have to drink it, and the other sheets don't even have to drink it. So how do we pass? And we normally assume we pass like the Rambam. That's how the Magen Avram paskins. that we assume we fulfill our mitzvah of Kiddush Min Torah with words. And in fact, that's what the famous Magen Avram, who extends the Rambam, says, how does one fulfill Kiddush every Friday night? Whether you're in shul or not, when you daven your Friday night, Makadesh or Shabbos, that's your mitzvah Min Torah. That's the famous question of the Dalgam Rebava, Torah, and again, the assumption the woman did not daven, so how do you go home and make Kiddush for your wife? But what's the assumption, the Magen Avram? You fulfill your mitzvah, certainly your mitzvah Min Torah of Kiddush in Shemon Esrei. So, in fact, and he says, how do I know that? This tomorrow night. That's how I know it, because obviously when Yom Kippur falls on Shabbos, there's a chiyuv to make Kiddush. Why shouldn't there be a chiyuv to make Kiddush on Shabbos? How am I fulfilling my mitzvah of Kiddush tomorrow night? By davening. When I daven the Ma'ir Shemon Esrei, so the same way it works Yom Kippur Shechol B'Shabbos, that shows it works all the time. So that's why, that's his raya, in fact, that when Yom Kippur Shechol B'Shabbos is the raya, the Yotze mitzvah of Kiddush Min Torah with words. Obviously, the Chachamim did not set up a mitzvah of Kiddush Al Yayin on Yom Kippur, and therefore, it's not even the kasha doesn't even begin. Of course you make Kiddush, and based on that, even if you want to tie this a Kiddush on Yom Kippur alone, so when you daven perhaps the Shemona Esrei Yom Kippur as well. But regarding Shabbos, it's clear, according to many poskim, that's it. The mitzvah Min Torah is in davening, and therefore, the Minchas Chinuch, who normally would have a problem with it, but perhaps I have to check the text in Yom Kippur. By Yontif, it wouldn't be a problem, because it mentions Yitzias Mitzrayim. I have to make sure that Yom Kippur davening also has it. He talks about the Sholosh Regolim, but the time the Minchas Chinuch had is, the Gemara in Ari Psachim says, to fulfill your mitzvah of Kiddush, so to answer up the question, there's no problem for a man to go home and make Kiddush for his wife. You are in Yotze Kiddush, because there's no Yitzias Mitzrayim, like say, Biur Halacha, maybe in Kriya Shema, but he says, but on Yontif, Amod, it is a problem, because in the Shalosh Regolim, you mentioned, I think it's also there in Yom Kippur, so it would work out very well in Yom Kippur, because then no one's going home to make Kiddush, and you can fulfill your mitzvah Min Torah. So that's what.
The other answer I heard is that you have to have kavanah.
That's the Chasam Sofer.
So that on Yom
Dafka have negative kavanah.
But on Yom Kippur you don't need that.
So then you go. Because basically you go with the regular Magen Avram, right? You have Dafka have kavanah to fulfill your mitzvah.
You don't need it because you're davening such a special davening that it's already happening. When you're davening a regular davening all year, then you need a kavanah that you're going to be having. You see, by definition, you're giving special praise to the day by davening. Right, so that it counts.
So you're saying it's more nicker.
So Yom Kippur you don't need.
Even though I'd say most people don't know they are, but you're right, I understand what you're saying. But
I didn't say it.
All right. No, I'm saying it's nicker, I know in that sense. So they point out, so really Min Torah, no problem. I'm going to fulfill my mitzvah of Kiddush tomorrow night. I don't know what the big deal is. When I daven my Shemona Esrei for tomorrow night, so if you assume Yotze with Dvarim, the question doesn't even begin. The Shaila is assuming not that way.
So what's that? I'm just thinking about this. So the idea of making Kiddush al yayin for someone who's a chola, right? Is a problem. Who says it's Xeris Terabbanan Kiddush al yayin for a chola on Yom Kippur?
No, that doesn't. The Magen Avram says no Kiddush at all. No Kiddush al yayin. There is no a person eats. Rabbi Akiva Eiger disagrees. Rabbi Akiva Eiger thinks. What? No, Rabbi Akiva Eiger, he thinks because Kiddush b'makam sud is a din daraisa, and therefore part of the mitzvah depends on what assumptions. It's not really a machlokes. It depends what assumptions you're making. So he's assuming that Kiddush. Again, I'm not saying he himself. He discusses it out Lamdis, whether I'm not saying he's Sarachi and whether he actually would say it, but I'm saying if you assume it's Daraisa, he's saying that's the way he asks the kasha. He says if you assume, according to the Shita, the Kiddush Malkam Masud is again if it's Kiddush B'Dvar, there's no question. We have no shir tonight. But I'm saying but if it's Kiddush B'Makam Suda, so then we have to try to Allah L'Maisa is not a problem. We're not going to make Kiddush.
Right. People don't make Kiddush on Yom Kippur?
Right. Yom Kippur at all, no, and we Allah L'Maisa, we're not going to make a Kiddush even on Shabbos.
Well, I thought you did.
Well,
I know you did Birkas Hamazon, but you should.
No, Birkas Hamazon for sure,
Right.
But I'll get to it.
But the fact is I thought a person makes Kiddush.
I'll give you the conclusion at the end.
You think yes?
I thought so.
I thought so too.
just have to look at it
Here's
again.
Don, here's
I
no
have,
more.
well, I'm saying,
What,
that,
like
I
a
mean,
Kiddush?
What?
you don't. I looked up these halachas before.
No, I think.
For, you know, you
For a
don't.
Chola doesn't
I
make
think
Kiddush.
not, but there's a discussion on it. I mean, I know that the Magen Avraham says no.
All the post
Right, yeah.
I understand.
And that's
No,
the
because
Rov.
it's Observer
Yeah, the Rova, yeah.
And then if you start getting into Kiddush D'Oraisa, it could have something different. But if we hold Kiddush,
Yeah, it's a Kiddush Al Yayin's D'Rabbanan, so obviously it was never.
You're
Yeah.
right, you say Ritzeh. You say Ritzeh.
The Magen Avraham.
In the bench.
In bench.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, because
And
the
Yalav.
Yeah, because the Magen Avraham.
That's different.
Right.
That would be
But
different.
no
But that's what I'm
Kiddush.
saying. If Kiddush Al Yayin is only Drabbanan, you need Xeris Drabbanan to initiate it. So what Rabbi Tzadok just said, that there's no Xeris Drabbanan of Kiddush. You know, that's why there's not even an issue.
No, in fact, that's the Magen Avraham's Pshari. He even says, because he says, you ask me, what do I say, Yalav Yavo, and we'd say yes and not Kiddush? He says his Masufik Kiddush is a bracha. I don't want to get into a bracha shein tzricha, and therefore I say, and Yalav Yavo, this haskara is to go ahead. I mean, it could be an afkamina. What happens what happens if a chola benches and leaves out Yalav Yavo? So according to the Shulchan Aruch, it could be you have to repeat.
Right.
According to the Magen Avraham, you're probably not, because he's only saying out suffix. You have to do it, but that'd be a big shiloh if you forget Yalav Yavo,
Right.
or Ritzeh.
That makes a lot of sense.
Even though
you saw the halacha just saw the halacha.
Which halacha?
Chola doesn't make Kiddush.
Yeah, I saw that also. Yeah, I'm saying Rov HaPoskim. The Rov HaPoskim say no Kiddush even on Shabbos.
Only Rabbi Kiva Eger says that you do. He's the only one.
We saw he did.
I thought it was the
Yeah, no, he's the only one,
I
but
just
yeah.
thought of the Piskei Teshuvos now.
Yeah.
I just saw
Yeah,
it
no,
now.
so, yeah. I'm saying it.
Piskei Teshuvos brings on all.
That's
the
a minority
He brings
view.
on a Stei Chemed, he brings on it, but none.
Yes, I'm saying it's that's Rabbi, that's his taina. His taina on the Magen Avraham. What do you mean bracha shein et tzricha? He says you make. You know, he says he's assuming you're making he's assuming it's Yom Kippur morning, and you're making a bar. We'll go into the separate discussion in terms of what's pshat, like barge you're making a full kiddush. This is a tash. You know, that gets into a whole issue in terms of someone who doesn't make kiddush on a regular Shabbos Friday night. He makes the regular kiddush. The question is why? Is it a din in the whole day, or is it a din? So Rabbi Eger discusses that based on the Gemara in Psachim. Kavod Yom is morad of kiddush hayom. He says the fact the Gemara is discussing it. He says that that there's it could be it's a din in all day. But either way, so they point out that that's his kasha. It's a bracha. It's kasha in the Magen Avraham. It's a bracha. What do you mean it's a bracha in tzricha? What baking? You have to make a boyer priyagafen anyway, which he's assuming you can drink wine. Like most people, I assume, would not be necessarily drinking wine, if not for the fact they're going to be drinking the water also. So that's what the emek bracha asks on Rabbi Kiva Eger's kasha on the Magen Avraham. To try to answer up the shaila, and they get into what's the chakira in terms of, again, it's more of a kiddush than the issue than it is Yom Kippur. So that's the kasha. So according to Rabbi Kiva Eger, if you assume it's daraisa, or if you go with according to Reish Lakish, why isn't there kiddush? So that's what is the famous Or Sameach. And Or Sameach, he has a very interesting lumdis. So he points out as follows. He says, so what's pshat when Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos? So what's pshat? Is it shtei kedushas? Is it basically you have two kedushas? Have kedushas Shabbos working together with kedushas Yom Kippur? Or did I say no? It's a hybrid. It's a fusion. That basically it's not Yom Kippur. It's not Shabbos. It's Kippur Shabbos, whatever you want to call it. But it's a totally independent day. It's not Shabbos. It's not Yom Kippur. It's a new kedusha. So he says he wants to bring. He says it is. It's a hybrid. And he says my raya is from the discussion that affects the Bali Musaf, also the Shaila. I'll get to it in a second. That he points out the issue of karbanos. We all know that halacha is the Kohen Gadol takes care of all the karbanos on Yom Kippur. So Shaila, what about the non-Yom Kippur karbanos? The karban tamid, let's say the Musaf of Shabbos, Trumas Hadeshin is a separate issue, the Baal more in there. So there's a machlokas among the Rishonim whether the Kohen Gadol has to do the quote-unquote non-Yom Kippurim karbanos. So it's a discussion. The Rambam seems to say that yes, the Kohen Gadol does them all. So the Or Sameach saying we pass in like the Rambam, and we see why is the Kohen Gadol bringing the Karban Tamid? Why is he bringing the Shabbos Karban? It must be that the whole day takes on, because during the week he doesn't bring those, he doesn't have to. It must be that it takes on a special status today, a special fusion, and therefore it's what you call a Kippur Shabbos. That's why he says, you know why there's no Kiddush? Just assuming that Minat Torah you would have to. It's not Shabbos. It's not Yom Kippur. It's a Yom Kippur Shachol b'Shabbos. Obviously on a regular Yom Kippur you wouldn't have a Chi of Kiddush either. It's a Kippur Shabbos, whatever you want to call it. And that's why there's no Chi of Kiddush. It's not, that's how he wants. And in fact, Rav Hutner elaborates, he likes the Or Sameach. He elaborates on it and he gets into the whole discussion of in fact, that's what, it's interesting, he goes into the issue really of Shvisa, that's what the Rama defines Yom Kippur as the day of Shvisa. It really is a Shabbat, Shabbaton. The highest level is we normally have to eat on Shabbos, but on Yom Kippur, Shachol Shabbos, we've reached the highest level of not eating, and that's how we enjoy the Shabbos. And in fact, that's what they say from the Kutzker. The Kutzker said there's two halachas in Shulchan Aruch that I don't know why they're there. We don't need them. What halachas are they? That not to eat on Tisha B'Av and not to eat on Yom Kippur. He says, how could you, on Tisha B'Av, how could you eat? Your Agbas Nefesh, Churban, how could you even eat? You're so broken up you couldn't eat anyway. And Yom Kippur was such on a high level, who could think about eating it? So the same, that's the Yisod based on the Or Sameach, that you reach a certain, and therefore it's a whole new, other Achronim don't like this, the Minchas Asher, Rav Asher Weiss, he doesn't like, he says what's Pasha to the Or Sameach, it's far from Pasha to me. He doesn't like it. He says with the raya from Karbanos, that could be a din in Avodas Yom Kippurim. That's a din in, but the fact that it applies to Kiddush, that he doesn't like. Whether he's saying like you that he thinks you should make Kiddush, I'm not sure. But he doesn't like the Or Sameach. In fact, some want to bring a kasha on it, or not as a kasha, but ha'ara is there's a discussion on a Yom Kippur that falls out during the week, whether it's the Chi of Hadlachas Neiros or not. As we mentioned last week, the Rama writes, but whatever your minig is, the minig is to light, you light, the minig. So, I think most of us assume, and we do, we light on a regular Yom Kippur. But that's what the Rama writes. However, the poskim writes, everyone's modeh on when Yom Kippur Shachol b'Shabbos, that you have to light. So the question is, what's the connection? Kippur Shachol b'Shabbos is, according to the Or Sameach, it's a separate din. Like what do you mean everyone should agree? Why should why should it be different? But that's the Ramah. The Ramah says because the reason why perhaps there's no mitzvah lachas neir is normally because there's no oneg, because there's no suda, and therefore you don't need the candles. That's what, as I mentioned, the Ramah writes, if you light candles, preferably in the bedroom. That's where they should go, because one can't have tashmish hamita, with the lights on. So therefore, if you remember, by putting, I'm not sure, I guess it's a private, I'm not sure if anyone actually does light in the bedroom, or maybe another different minhagim.
Today's Mishnah. Today's Mishnah Yom.
Oh yeah, that's what it was?
Makom Shnog.
Yeah, so, Psachim, yeah. Yeah. So they point out over there, so that's the question, do you accept this chiddush of the Or Sameach, or not, whether, so according to us, the way we seem to pass, there's no shiloh, we fulfill a mitzvah of kiddush by davening. But according to those shittas that say, Minat Torah, you have to have your wine, or you have to have a suda, so therefore what would they answer? So they'll come on to the Or Sameach's kiddush, that Yom Kippur Shachol b'Shabbos, there's no din, it's a hybrid, it's a fusion, and there never was a Chi of Kiddush on this. It's interesting.
Why do we have to go to such machinations? We have no say to make Kiddush, except we have the Lord says, the chorus that says you can't eat. So why would you think I have to do the assay when I have such a powerful Lord in its face? It's not that I have to shmei or find an excuse. I can't eat because of Kippur. I can't eat. You have to fast.
The two don't go against each other.
In fact, but what you're saying is that's the Minchas Asher's time. He said, "What do you mean it's fusion?" He says, right. He's saying exactly what you're saying. He said, "What do you mean? Yom Kippur wins. That's all it means. It doesn't mean anything.
That only takes you out of
I'm just pointing out some say like that.
Out of the drinking,
Yeah.
but it doesn't take you out of the Kiddush Dvarim. Right?
So, fine. So,
Yeah.
and that gets it. And my
Right. In
point
other
doesn't
words,
hurt me because I'm not prevented from talking, right? I'm prevented from eating. And Yom Kippur I can still talk, so I can say Kiddush B'Devarim. That's not a problem. But that's not.
But once you, well, we didn't speak of that, but the Pri Megadim, once you're misakin the
Din
halacha,
Rabbanan, you could tie like the Pri Megadim that once they said Kiddush Alayayin, so then perhaps even the
Never go
Deraisa
back.
you don't
you
fulfill.
can never go back.
Well, why? Because I say Kiddush B'Makom Suda. That's
No,
why.
That was,
No.
There's no Suda. There's no
that was
Kiddush.
the point. But
It's a tail wagging
No,
the
once
dog.
you, once,
But the
once,
Zera Rabbanan did not apply to Yom Kippur. It was a split. In other words, when the Zera was
Yeah.
made, it was not that.
Yeah, that
was
was-
well, that's the question.
That's what his
Made.
name. That's why.
Right.
That's why the issue came up for Kiddush because if there's no Zera, then there's no idea of Kiddush. That's why. That's why,
Unless you assume Kiddush B'Makom Suda is Deraisa. If you assume it's Rabbanan.
That's really. But that's the question.
Yeah, and that's why, in fact, that's what they point out. That's why, but that's the question: what nusach do the Bali Musaf use when they daven the part of Shabbos in the Musaf? Do they do the Yom Kippur nusach? So they say it's totally on this issue on whether who brought the Kohen Gadol, because we say the pious, even though that's what even though some say we don't follow that, but so that's I don't know what is the meaning.
there's your answer.
What did he say?
I don't know, that's what I do. It doesn't
What do you do?
I switch from Yom Kippur to
Oh, you
Shabbos.
do, okay.
I do also.
Oh, you do, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so you have to against the Or Sameach.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying negatively. I'm saying
It's actually discussed. right?
yeah.
So this
As
is,
I'm saying, you have to go to what's the Bell School of Music. You could go there, and I don't know how they pass. I didn't get a chance to call them before. You get a chance to call in before. So I assume you did it, and I guess no one. Most people I didn't know it was even an issue, but I'm saying.
I didn't know it was
But
an issue.
yeah. So and just to conclude, it's interesting. Rabbi Yosef Engel, he says, what do you mean? What's the conflict? What do you mean? Do both. He says, you make Shabbos early, Tosefes Shabbos, make your Kiddush, eat your Suda, and then you begin your Yom Kippur later. So obviously it's but this before the difficulty, he thinks this works well or better with the sheet that we were talking about, Rabbi Yona's sheet, that is the Chiyuv Suda. So at least we could discuss, it's a Suda's Yantiv, but I'm making Kiddush. But it's difficult you don't really say Tosefes Yantiv L'Chatzayin, that for Yom Kippur, yes, and that, so, but this interest, don't worry, we don't pass in that way. But,
Yosef Engel?
Yosef Engel, that interesting, distinction to bring in early Shabbos.
There's no question of Tosefes.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have to Shabbos Yom Kippur.
It's actually no good.
That's where we learned it from.
You need to
Mark
do it,
and
and
stuff like
Yeah.
because you're adding Shabbos, but it's not Yom Kippur.
That's what I'm saying. No, it's difficult. I'm saying
Yeah.
no. I'm saying it is a nice. It's just he's brilliant. Just to have. It's just an interesting idea, but it's very difficult. I'm saying it's certainly halach l'maisa, but in terms of also.
How would that work? I don't understand. It doesn't get off the
How would it
ground.
work?
You
Yeah.
bring
It's
in.
different Tosefes. That's what I'm saying.
He's assuming you could bring in.
So you can bring in
He's assuming you could bring in a Tosefes Shabbos.
a Shabbos while not
I guess-
yet
I
affecting
guess he's working now with the
Easter
Shabbos.
of the
It's not change the day.
He's working.
Same with Omer.
He's working now with the. He's working now with the Or Sameach. It's Shnei Kedushas, and not totally Zebazeh.
The whole deal was Tosefes
But everybody
Shabbos.
agrees that the mitzvah that is night bound, right?
So-
Omer, you wouldn't be.
So, no, but-
Kriya Shema not. You can make Kiddush early.
So that's already dead. So how can you bring it in? So he's making the same
Okay,
thing.
so that's like the Taz and the Marshal, right? Whether you have to continue your meal
Right,
into the dark,
exactly. Yeah,
into, right?
Yeah,
Right,
no
that's
issue.
exactly it. But it's the same.
Whether
it's
you-
the same issue.
But I'm just saying, but he seems to be working. If anything, he could be working with the sheet that at least that there's a chiyuv, it's a yantiv and it's a Shabbos. But right, halach l'maisa. Yes, Ritzei and Yalav Yavo. No to Kiddush. As far as my research tells me, Rova Poskim, saying I guess the Rav Salanter might have felt differently, assuming that.
That's it. He said Kiddush.
Exactly. No, and then also the question is exactly. I didn't like the Dimyon. Is you could Because in that case, when you're dealing with an epidemic, with the whole community, I don't think it's the same. There's much more room to be strict on certain. Because in normal cases,
Maybe
it's all
he's just
about.
making the point.
Yeah, I'm just
Maybe
saying.
he's making a halacha.
I'm saying it's a yachid. I don't think it's a difference between a yachid who's a cholesh ebo sakana versus the two. I don't like the poskim. I don't think necessarily that it's a conflict. I could say infectious disease, everyone eats, but I wouldn't say that someone on an individual basis, a cholesh ebo sakana, should eat. I'm just saying the poskim take it. I don't really see how it. I see where they're going, but I wouldn't necessarily see there a conflict. And whether that's the question, whether historically was it a Yom Kippur shachol b'Shabbat? So they argue, so some people argue on this psak that telling people to eat, and some people argue on this psak of making kiddush on a Yom Kippur shachol b'Shabbat. It's a Gemara Chasim Tova.
Yeah.